A mostly sunny good morning to you. Jonathan Dent in for Terry today. We'll hear from Terry in a little bit. He will be joined by Andy Bernia of ACH Sugar Beets. But for now, let's take a look over at the weather. Right now, it is 72 at the airport, 74 in Midland, and 71 here at Radio Center. Winds out of the west at 14 miles per hour. Barometric pressure 29.84, holding steady. Looking throughout the day, though, we've got highs in the mid-70s, around 75, which is about average for this time of year. We have the record high of 92 set in 1948. We are well below that, but we are more than double the record low of 36, which was set back in 1926. West winds 5 to 15 miles per hour, which will go up to 10 to 20 as the day continues on. Tonight, clear with lows in the mid-40s. Tomorrow, going into the weekend, a mostly sunny morning, becoming a partly cloudy afternoon, with highs around 70, cooling off a little bit. Saturday night, more clouds with a 30% chance of rain showers, with lows in the lower 50s. Sunday, we've got highs in the upper 60s, with a 50% chance of rain showers, which will turn into more rain showers overnight, and thunderstorms going into Monday morning. We'll take a look at the markets coming up, but first we want to remind you that today's weather report is brought to you by the folks at Nutrien Ag Solutions. Let's head over to Star of the West, where Gary Kaufman is standing by. Gary, how are you today?
Good morning, Jonathan. Doing well, thank you.
Great. How are we looking on the markets today?
Well, right now wheat and soybeans are down, but corn is kind of holding unchanged. But right now, let's call cash wheat down 15 at 10.08 on the white, 9.58 on the red. New crop also down 15 at 10.13 on the white, 9.63 on the red. Cash corn unchanged at 6.65. New crop also unchanged at 6.39. Cash soybeans are down 28 at 16.61, and new crop, let's call it down 17 at 14.60.
All right. Thank you, Gary. You have a good weekend, all right?
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. You as well. Bye.
Gary Kaufman over at Star of the West. Let's head over to Oppenheimer for more on the markets. But first, we want to remind you that the market report today brought to you by Schaefer and Beerline. Are you looking for a new commercial truck or van? It's spring Ram commercial truck season at Schaefer and Beerline. They are the Great Lakes Bay Area's certified ag dealer. Schaefer and Beerline has been around since 1852, and they know trucks and vans. Buy with confidence from a dealer where family and service sells cars. Schaefer and Beerline in Frankenmuth. And also by Thumb Bank, serving agriculture for over 125 years, 2 locations in Bay City, also Cass City, Caseville, Pigeon, and Bad Axe. Thumb Bank, where relationships are built on trust. Doug Klein joins us now over at Oppenheimer. Doug, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, I don't have any good news. Crude oil's up $2.40 today. It's pushing on 120 now, 119.27. So that's not too pretty. Turkey has an inflation rate of 73% year over year, but that's not a whole lot higher than our United States gasoline prices, up 50% year over year. And by the way, primers for reloading pistol bullets are up 300% year over year. So
good.
I don't know who's working that plan, but it's just not pretty. I don't know. Biden's talking about going over to Saudi Arabia. I'm sure it's to sell more paintings, because what else is he going to do there? Beg for more oil? I don't know, Anyway, so here's your numbers. July corn is $7.29, down a penny and a quarter. December corn is $6.93, down also 1 1/4. The September of 23 corn is $6.47.5. That's up a penny. The July soybeans $17.01, down 28 1/4. November soybeans $15.23, down 18 3/4. And November of 23 soybeans $13.98, down 8 1/2. July wheat is $10.42 3/4, down 15 1/2. The December wheat is $10.66 1/4, down 14 3/4. And July of 23 wheat is $10.50 3/4, down 11 1/4. Crude oil is $119.25, up $2.38. Heating oil is $4.31.64. That's up 10 3/4 cents. Gasoline is $4.23.08, up 4 cents. Natural gas $8.52.5, up also 4 cents. Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar gets you 125.75 at the border. That's pretty close to unchanged. The U.S. dollar gets you 130.76 yen. That's up 93 ticks. The euro's at 107.19. That's down 26 ticks. Then the dollar's at 102.12, up 30 ticks. Gold is at $18.50.70, down $15.80. Silver's at $21.93, down 34 cents. And platinum's at $10.19.90, down $8.50.
All right. Thank you, Doug.
All right. Have a good weekend.
You too. We'll be right back with more. Terry will be joined by Andy Bernia of ACH Sugar Beets when we return. And we're back. We're going to throw it over to Terry now, who is joined by Andy Bernia of ACH Sugar Beets.
How you doing, John?
Good. How are you?
Hey, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Along with us is Andy Bernia with ACHCs. Andy, good morning. I brought you nice weather again.
Good morning. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Nice and comfortable.
Well, I'll tell you, you've had the opportunity over the last couple of days to take a look at...
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Maybe, John,
Hello?
I'll need to go on. Yeah. Can you
Hello?
hear me? Can you hear me now?
No, I got you.
Now you got me. Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. Finding the right button usually takes a little bit longer some days.
And it seems to get a little more tricky with age.
We won't even go there. Andy, you've had the opportunity now over the past few days to take a look at some of the benefits of your planting that you've been doing so far, and some of the planting that other folks have been doing with the sugar beets. This year has been kind of unusual, hasn't it?
Yeah, a later planting window than what we normally would like and normal experience. But, sometimes when we plant later and temperatures are warmer, the crop takes off and gets established quicker, and then it kind of gets off to the races. And that's sort of what it's looking like. A lot of beets were planted in that window from around May 7th to the 13th. I would say the majority of the crop, and especially up across the thumb, we've got some excellent stands, and the crop's looking good.
For once, I'm not seeing too many guys tracking across the field for the second time.
Right, that's a big change from the last 2 years where we've had a lot of replant due to the freezing, but that's certainly not the case this year. A few replants here and there, nothing too tremendous. More maybe in the central and the west districts. The previous planting window around April 28th to May 2nd seems like we got a little more variability in those in that range there, but nothing too significant. We've run a few replant units out, but not a whole lot.
Kind of brings up an interesting scenario for you folks who are in the seed sales part of it. Did you order a lot of extra seed like you normally do?
Yeah, we kind of had a double whammy this year. So based on the challenges we had the last 2 years with, pretty extreme replants, we did build in a little extra inventory. And then to make matters a little more difficult, after we got done writing our orders, the acres were reduced a little bit by the sugar company. So, we're getting a few more returns back than normal, but we'll manage through it.
Now, one thing about the last couple of years, having gotten the crop in a little bit earlier, the early harvest was actually more of a timely harvest because those beets were ready to come out of the field, if not the middle of August, by the end of August.
Right. We had good tonnage already in August. If you remember, last year was early crop, and then we had a dry spell, and the roots really went down deep. And then once we got it rains, they kind of filled out. So could be a different story this year with acres being down and a little bit later planting date. Again, time will tell, but we'll know more when we get to August.
What's the next step as far as our sugar beet growers go here in Michigan? What do they need to be looking for?
Well, they're already on top of a lot of great managers out here. And so they've been very busy making herbicide applications. That's a key thing. And also kind of watching now for glyphosate-resistant weeds is another thing. So growers are having to manage that with their spray programs. And then the other activity that we're doing this time of year is the quadrus application at the kind of 4 to 6 leaf stage. Their growers are applying quadrus on a band over top of the rows. So in between dry beans, they got lots to do.
Well, and the other thing too, the cost of everything. Very possibly could be juggling a few things that a farmer usually does.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt that that's on the minds of all the growers and in all the commodity markets this year is input costs have just really shot up. So growers are very conscientious about it and trying to save costs where they can, but yet they know where they got to spend money to make a good crop.
What are we hearing in other parts of the country? I mean, there aren't a lot of places that raise sugar beets. How are other parts of our country doing?
It's been a kind of a struggle all over. The Red River Valley in particular has been very late, so they're nearly complete now, but they're by far the latest average planting date that they've ever had. So in American Crystal Market, they actually allowed the growers to plant more acres. I think like they planted an extra 20,000 acres to compensate for the late start. And then, and they were just very wet, just couldn't get in the field. And kind of a similar deal at Mindac. Southern Min is probably more like us, a little later start, but they got the crop in. And then as you move out west, Idaho and the Intermountain states, the big issue there is water. So they're very concerned about having enough water to finish the crop as we move throughout the growing season.
You bring up a real interesting point, and that is agriculture out in that part of the country. They have to deal with the dry conditions and the lack of water in the reservoirs, as well as the rivers and streams out there.
Yeah, it's a huge difference from the agriculture in the western part of the U.S. versus here in the Midwest. And, more times than not, we're trying to figure out how to get rid of water, and out there they're trying to figure out how to get more. And basically they're not getting the full allocation of water in some cases. And there's been some farms that had to be moved around or taken out of production just because they couldn't get enough water.
Yep. Andy, you take care. Have a nice weekend. It looks like we're going to have, well, not exactly cold temperatures, but a little bit below average, but above average on the moisture. So I got a funny feeling next week we're going to see a few days where maybe we'll get a quarter of an inch or 4/10. I don't think that'll bother anybody, will it?
No, I think we're ready for a nice gentle rain. I think that would be just great.
Andy, you have a nice weekend. We'll talk again soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, Terry.
You bet. Andy Bernia with Crystal Hybrids. When we return, Jonathan will be talking to Stephanie Zelenko. They're going to be talking about nutrient deficiencies out there in some of our crops. She comes along with Jonathan right after this.
And we're back. Jonathan Dent here for Terry Henne today. Let's go over to AgriLiquid, where we talk to Stephanie Zelenko, and we're going to talk a little bit about deficiencies in nutrients out in some of the crops that we have in the ground right now. Stephanie?
Absolutely. This is the perfect time now that our planting is slowing down a little bit across most of the state and we're getting those crops in. Things are starting to emerge. We've had some good moisture and rain, so things are coming up nicely from what I can see across the local area anyways. But we are starting to see some of those nutrient deficiencies appear. So you're starting to see some of that pale corn, even purpling on corn. Soybeans, we're not seeing a whole lot yet, but now is the time to go out and take a look at those. So a couple of things that I think of: manganese, zinc, sulfur are going to be the key ones that we're starting to see now in corn when we start to see those pale spots in the fields as we drive around.
And is the requirements for these, is that going to change as we move through and as things continue to come up?
Probably one of the main reasons that we're seeing the deficiencies now is that root system just isn't big enough to tap into those nutrients that are available in the soil. So as that crop grows, the requirements are going to stay the same or increase, but hopefully that root system can reach out and get more of those nutrients that have been applied in the soil. Slower growing crops, when we get these cold snaps, kind of slow down and escalate that a little bit. But we're going to, just keep an eye on those to make sure that, they are progressing and getting better color. And if they're not, then we need to make some management decisions on how to improve that.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Stephanie. You have a good weekend.
You too.
Let's head over to Maple Hill Nursery, where Chuck Cervinsky is going to talk to us. Now, Chuck, we're going into the summer here, and many folks have had their gardens planted for a couple weeks now, maybe, and we're starting to see more insects coming out, and maybe that's coming with a little bit of damage to our gardens out there.
Yeah, definitely. Right now we're seeing holes in leaves on hostas, and what those are caused by is mostly slugs. They're to blame for the holes in the leaves for the most part. They're a nighttime forager and probably the most common of all hosta pests. And a good indicator of their presence is a silvery colored slime that kind of trails through the landscape. Control can be done quite easily through a variety of different chemical products, including bonide, bug, and slug killer. This really comes on when we have like a warmer rain, and then cooler temperatures. And so that's something that we need to watch out for right now.
And that's exactly what we've been having. We've had rain intermittently over the last couple of weeks, and things are starting to cool off. So that's a big thing that people are seeing now, yeah?
And ants as well. We're getting a lot of calls on ants, and with the cooler weather and some of the rain that I think we're going to get next week, insects are going to come out in full force. So you're going to want to be on guard for that.
Absolutely. And what if we see brown spots on leaves? Is that the same thing, slugs and insects, or is that something else?
On hostas, in particular, that could be signs of anthracnose. That disease kind of thrives in warm and wet conditions, and it can appear really quickly. And it'll start out with a large irregular spot that's usually surrounded by a dark border on a hosta, and the centers will fall out, and you kind of think that it's pest damage, but it really isn't. And how you can prevent the disease from occurring or spreading is to try to keep a good distance between plants when you plant. especially new plants, to allow for air movement, and avoid overhead watering if you can.
All right, Chuck, you have a great weekend, okay?
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll be right back, but first, this. That'll do it for our farm program today. Thank you very much to Terry for letting me step in a little bit, as well as being here for that conversation with Andy Bernia. We'll be back on Monday with Terry. We'll also be back at the bottom of the hour here with more market information. For now, let's end our program with the playing of our national anthem. Once again, real quick, we're looking at cooler temperatures, a little bit of rain through the weekend. Staying around 70, though, so should be a very nice weekend to get out there, at least until things start to cool off. Have a good morning.